Walter Bennett held a paper coffee cup in one hand and a small worn keychain in the other. He stood in front of apartment 4B of the Jefferson Heights complex in Oakland, California. The key he held used to work just fine. Now it only scratched uselessly at the new digital lock mounted on the door. He leaned in and knocked, not too hard, not too soft, just like he always had when visiting Hannah. No response. He knocked again. Silence. He checked his phone. 1 bar. Still no answer to his calls or texts. The last message from Hannah was 2 weeks ago. Busy with work, Dad. I'll call tonight. Love you. That call never came. Walter took a step back, eyes drifting toward the peephole. No movement, not a single sound from inside. He felt the kind of silence that didn't feel empty. It felt occupied. He glanced down the hallway, clean, sterile, mid-range apartment building stuff. The hallway light flickered once. There was a faint scent of garlic coming from 4C. A sitcom laugh track echoed behind one of the other doors. It should have felt like a normal Thursday afternoon. But it didn't. Walter's gut, the one that had served him well through 65 years of life, whispered, "Something's off." He slid the key back into his pocket and knocked one more time. Still nothing. A door creaked open across the hall. Eugene Randall, late 50s, gruff but kind face. Gray Raiders hoodie poked his head out. "Walter, right?" he asked, stepping into the hallway with a Miller Lite can in hand. Walter nodded. "Yeah, Eugene, isn't it? That's me. You looking for Hannah? I've been trying to reach her for 2 weeks. Eugene scratched the back of his neck, visibly uncomfortable. "She's not around much lately. Haven't seen her. But I've seen him." Travis Eugene gave a short, bitter laugh. "Yeah, him, and some guests." Walter's heart sank. Eugene leaned on the railing, sipping his beer like he'd been waiting for someone to ask. "Look, I don't mean to gossip, but I figured you should know. Tuesday night. Some blonde, tall, wore heels louder than my ex-wife's opinions." Walter tried to smile but couldn't. Wednesday redhead, seemed younger. Thursday brunette, silver Lexus. He walked him in, walked him out. Always had the nerve to whistle while doing it. Walter clenched the keychain in his fist. It pressed into his palm. "I'm not judging," Eugene added quickly, but it felt wrong. "I mean, Hannah's a sweetheart. Doesn't seem like she'd be okay with all that." Walter said nothing, just looked back at the door, that same silent door, and felt a knot tightening in his stomach. Eugene took a step closer, voice softening. "I heard her voice maybe 3 weeks ago. In the hallway. Real quiet. Like she was crying." Walter closed his eyes for half a second. "You sure, pretty sure?" "Look, man, I've got 2 daughters of my own. I know that tone." Walter looked down at his coffee. It had gone cold. He gave a small nod. "Thanks, Eugene." "You need anything?" Eugene said, backing toward his unit. "Knock on 4C." Walter forced a smile. "Appreciate it." The door closed. The hallway returned to its steady hum. The sitcom across the hall switched to a commercial. Somewhere in the building, water pipes clanked. He sat down on the bench by the elevator, the same one he and Hannah had shared sandwiches on years ago when she first moved here. She was 25 then. Fresh job, new life, whole future ahead of her. She used to call him every Sunday morning. Then it became every other week, then monthly. Now, silence. He opened his phone. One more try. Call Hannah, ring, ring. Voicemail. "Hey, sweetheart, it's me. I'm outside your place. You're probably working or something, but I just wanted to see you." "Call me, all right." He paused. Wanted to say more, something like, "I'm worried." But he didn't. He hung up and stared at the blank screen. Then under his breath, barely a whisper. "If you left, you would have told me. Unless you couldn't." He looked at the digital lock on her door. Cold, silent, just like everything else. Walter sat on a cement bench outside the Jefferson Heights building, hands trembling slightly as he held his phone. The sun was beginning to dip low, casting a burnt orange glow across the apartment parking lot. The air smelled like exhaust and early spring flowers, confused, not quite sure if it was winter or not. He pulled up the app Hannah had once insisted he install. "Just in case, Dad. Not surveillance. Safety," she'd said with a laugh, walking him through it, in that patient voice only adult daughters seem to have with their aging fathers. He never used it. Until now. It loaded slowly. His fingers tapped nervously, missing the small icon twice before hitting it. Find my family. The screen blinked. Then there it was, a red dot pulsing faintly in the middle of a digital map. St. Jude Medical Center, San Francisco. Walter blinked. Jesus, he muttered, staring. Why would she be in San Francisco? The dot had a timestamp last seen 22 minutes ago. Battery 23%. He stood abruptly, nearly spilling what was left of his cold coffee. His legs stiffened from the hours of sitting and waiting, but he moved quickly now toward the curb, waving down the first yellow cab he saw, like it was still the 90s. The driver was a round man in his 40s, friendly face, soft jazz playing low through the stereo. Where to, Sir? St. Jude Medical, San Francisco, and step on it. The driver blinked. That far, huh? Emergency, Walter said simply. The driver nodded and didn't ask another question. The car merged onto the highway, the Oakland skyline slowly melting away behind them. Walter stared out the window as cars passed the world, moving too fast and too casually for what he was feeling. He saw couples walking dogs, a teenage boy tossing a football in a front yard, a mother adjusting a stroller's canopy. Normal life, the kind he no longer felt part of. His phone buzzed again. Another call to Hannah went to voicemail. Again. He closed his eyes and exhaled. 3 years ago, he'd sat in another cab on another highway, headed toward another hospital, this time in Bend, Oregon. It was his wife then, colon cancer. He remembered the sterile smell of the waiting rooms, the way her voice had gotten quieter with each visit. He wasn't ready to repeat that experience, not with his daughter. 42 minutes later, they pulled up to the curved driveway of St. Jude Medical. The building loomed clean and glassy, sterile in that expensive hospital kind of way. People moved in and out under the patient access, level 2 sign. Walter paid the fare and tipped too much, then marched straight inside. The nurse at the front desk looked up from her monitor. Can I help you, sir? Yes. Hannah Bennett. I believe she's a patient here. I'm her father. The nurse typed, then paused. 1 moment, please. Walter's heart stopped. 2 minutes passed, then 5. Finally, a tall woman in blue scrubs and a St. Jude badge stepped out of a side hallway. Mr. Bennett. Yes, I'm Dr. Natalie Chen. Can we speak privately? They walked into a small consultation room with pale green walls and 2 chairs. Walter sat down slowly, gripping the arms of the chair. Is she alive? Dr. Chen nodded gently. Yes, she's stable. Walter let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. But she's very ill. She was admitted almost 2 weeks ago. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Walter stared at her like she'd spoken in another language. The words didn't connect. 2 weeks. Yes, she was brought in by her husband, Mr. Colburn. He signed the intake forms. Walter blinked. She never told me. Dr. Chen softened. She's been declining rapidly. She requested limited visitors and didn't list family. She might have thought she was protecting you. Walter swallowed hard, nodding like he understood, even though he didn't. Not really. Can I see her? Yes, she's resting, but she's awake. Dr. Chen led him down a quiet hallway. The walls were lined with faded paintings of coastal scenes and inspirational quotes. One of them read, "Hope is a quiet companion." Walter hated that quote. They reached the room, 517B. Dr. Chen opened the door quietly and stepped aside. Walter walked in. There she was, pale, thinner than he remembered, but still his Hannah. Wires, monitors 4, stand the soft hiss of oxygen. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing was steady. He took a chair by the bed and sat. He didn't speak, not yet. He just held her hand. After a moment, her eyes opened slowly as if from underwater. She blinked once. Then again, Dad. He smiled gently. Hey, sweetheart. Tears welled instantly in her eyes. I didn't want you to know. I know, he whispered, voice cracking. But I'm here now. She closed her eyes again, tears sliding down her cheek. They didn't talk about Travis. They didn't talk about hospitals or diagnoses or fear. They just sat hand in hand in the quiet room that smelled faintly of antiseptic and chamomile lotion. And for the first time in 2 weeks, Walter no longer felt helpless. He felt needed. Walter stood by the hospital window watching the traffic crawl along Van Ness Avenue below. The view was nothing special, just a sea of cars and the occasional palm tree swaying gently in the evening breeze. But it wasn't the view he was focused on. It was the post. A photo on Instagram. Travis Colburn, smiling, holding a drink, surrounded by people in cocktail dresses and slim-fit suits. The caption read, "Freedom tastes better with views. Happy birthday to me." Location tagged Elysian Rooftop Bar, San Francisco, posted 15 minutes ago. Walter didn't say a word. He simply turned off his phone, pocketed it, and walked back to Hannah's bedside. She was asleep again, or at least trying to be. He adjusted her blanket gently and kissed the back of her hand. Then he stood up, walked out of the room, and called a number he hadn't dialed in years. Caleb Whitmore answered on the second ring. "Walter, still working, IRS fraud. Always. I've got a name for you." It was just after 8 p.m. when Walter arrived at Elysian Rooftop Bar. The elevator ride to the 30th floor was smooth and quiet, filled with soft jazz and the scent of expensive cologne left behind by someone important. The doors opened with a ding. Walter stepped into a sea of lights, laughter, and rooftop glamour. San Francisco stretched out behind the glass walls, blinking with thousands of tiny lights like a digital galaxy. Lounge music pulsed beneath the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. He felt out of place in his flannel shirt and windbreaker, but he didn't care. He was a father on a mission. The hostess gave him a quick once-over. "Do you have a reservation, sir? I'm here for Travis Colburn's birthday party. I'm his father-in-law." The look on her face changed slightly. "Of course. Right this way." Travis was easy to find. Center of the crowd. One hand holding a drink, the other around a woman half his age in a sequin dress. Walter watched from a distance for a moment, just long enough to feel his stomach turn. Then, he stepped forward. "Travis!" The voice cut through the music like a knife. The laughter around the table faded. Heads turned. Travis froze. He turned slowly, his face tightening when he saw who it was. "Walter, what are you doing here?" "I saw the post," Walter said calmly. "Nice suit. You buy it before or after the hospital visit?" Travis glanced nervously at the woman beside him, then back at Walter. "Let's not do this here." Walter smiled just barely. "Funny. Hannah said the same thing when the chemo started." A gasp came from someone nearby. Travis stepped forward. "Can we talk?" Walter raised a hand. "Oh, we're talking. Right now. You threw a birthday bash while your wife lay in a hospital bed fighting for her life. That's bold, Travis. I'll give you that." A beat of silence. Then Walter said loud enough for the whole party to hear. "While your wife fights cancer, you celebrate freedom. That's your brand, isn't it?" People were whispering now. The music had faded to background noise. Travis looked around. The eyes of the phones recording the judgment. Walter leaned in close, lowering his voice. "In 1 hour, you'll know what that costs." Then he turned and walked away. No yelling, no scene, just a man who had said what needed to be said. The elevator doors closed behind him. As they descended, Walter's phone buzzed. A text from Caleb. "We found the offshore accounts." "This guy's cooked. You ready?" Walter typed back, "Let them." Across the rooftop, Travis stood, frozen sweat forming under his collar despite the night breeze, and for the first time in a long time he felt something he hadn't expected. Fear. The hallway outside Hannah's hospital room was quiet, that specific kind of quiet reserved for 10 p.m. in medical buildings. The night shift had taken over, the lights dimmed to a warm glow, and most patients were already asleep. Walter stood by the vending machine sipping stale coffee from a plastic cup that burned his fingers through the paper sleeve. He wasn't tired, not anymore. His phone vibrated in his jacket pocket. Travis calling. He let it ring. Again, Travis calling. He let it go to voicemail. Again, the third time he picked up. Walter Travis's voice was high-breathy. "What the hell did you do?" Walter took another sip of coffee. "Is that how you start conversations now?" "No, hello, I'm serious, man. You think showing up at my party was funny? Are you trying to ruin my life?" Walter walked slowly toward the window. "You did that yourself. I just gave the room a better view. You're not her guardian. You can't make medical decisions." "I don't need to." Hannah already did. There was silence on the other end. Then, "Look, I didn't tell you because it wasn't the right time. She didn't want you stressed. I was taking care of her." Walter chuckled low and bitter. "Yeah, before or after the redhead and the Lexus." More silence. "You have no idea what you've started," Travis hissed. "No," Walter said. "You don't." Then he hung up. Back in Hannah's room, the air monitor beeped steadily. She was asleep again, her breathing shallow, her hair tucked behind one ear. A tray sat beside her with half-melted Jell-O and untouched applesauce. Walter sat beside her, his mind unusually still. Earlier that evening, he had filed the request with the hospital's patient access desk. Restrict all visitors not on Hannah's approved list. Travis wasn't on it. He also sent Caleb every financial document he could find. Tax forms, business filings, even a photo of Travis's Rolex with a suspicious serial number. Let the system do the rest. Walter wasn't a man of revenge. He was a man of balance, and things were beginning to balance. A nurse came in quietly to check the monitors. She smiled at Walter. "She's resting okay. Want me to bring you another blanket? I'm fine," he said. "She needs it more than I do." The nurse nodded and left. Walter looked at Hannah again. She was frowning in her sleep, her fingers twitching slightly. He reached over and took her hand just like before. "You don't have to worry," he whispered. "I'm here now." 30 minutes later, his phone buzzed again. A message from Caleb. "Denise Fowler's team is in place. Arrest warrant in progress. Offshore transfers confirmed. This guy is going down. You'll get the notification soon." Walter stared at the screen for a moment, then typed, "Do it." Meanwhile, in a condo across town, Travis was pacing. He'd deleted his last Instagram post, shut off his phone, and pulled up every single email thread related to his business accounts. Something was wrong. Very wrong. It wasn't just Walter showing up. It was the tone, the calm, the fact that Walter hadn't yelled or threatened. That meant something was already in motion. He tried logging into one of his offshore dashboards. Access denied. Tried another. Access suspended. His chest tightened, and for the first time since college, since getting caught cheating on an ethics final, Travis Colburn began to panic. Back at the hospital, Walter leaned back in the chair beside Hannah's bed and closed his eyes. The room was silent again, but it wasn't the same silence as 2 days ago. This one felt earned, protected, like something sacred had returned to its rightful place. The phone vibrated once more. "A final message from Caleb. Arrest happens tonight, just after midnight. You'll know." Walter didn't smile. He just whispered, "In 1 hour, you'll know." The night had thickened around the city, a fog rolling in off the bay and settling like a ghost on the rooftops. Inside Travis Colburn's luxury apartment, things were anything but calm. He sat in his home office staring at his laptop screen. Account access denied, transfer flagged, suspicious activity detected, one after another. His offshore accounts were frozen, his crypto wallets had flags. Even the dummy LLCs, the ones registered to a P.O. box in Nevada, were triggering alerts. He clicked typed, refreshed. Nothing worked. Every shortcut he'd built for years was unraveling in front of him, and fast. His phone rang. Blocked number. He let it ring. Then another. This one said, "Walter Bennett." He hesitated. Picked up. Walter's voice was calm, steady, and unshakably cold. Still enjoying that hour, Travis exhaled through his nose. "You think this is smart?" "Getting the government involved, you don't know what you're dealing with." "Oh, but I do," Walter replied. "I used to file joint taxes with a woman who could balance our entire family budget on the back of a church bulletin. Hannah's the same way. But you saw her as weak, something to hide behind while you played big man." Travis paced the room. "Look," he started, voice softer now, almost desperate. "We can fix this. I can cover Hannah's medical bills. I'll sign over the apartment. Hell, I'll disappear. Just don't press charges." Walter said nothing. Just silence. Then, the sound of a voice behind him, faint, raspy. "Is that him?" It was Hannah. Walter had the phone on speaker. Travis froze. Hannah's voice, though weak, came through clear. "You threw a party while I was hooked to machines. That's the last call you'll ever make to me." Travis stumbled back into his chair. "Hannah, I thought you didn't want—" "You thought wrong," she said. Click. The call ended. 10 seconds later, the buzzer rang at Travis's front door. 3 knocks, then a voice. "Federal agents, open the door." His heart stopped. He opened it slow. 2 women and 1 man in Navy FBI jackets stood in the hallway. Their badges were visible. Calm, professional, unshakably firm. "Travis Colburn, you're under arrest for wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. Step back. Hands where we can see them." Travis looked around. "Wait. This is a mistake." They read him his rights as they handcuffed him. "You have the right to remain silent." He didn't. He screamed. Back at the hospital, Walter and Hannah sat in silence. Hannah held the iPad in her lap, eyes still red but dry now. She looked at her father. "You really had him arrested?" Walter didn't answer right away. He looked out the window. The fog had reached the hilltops now, blanketing everything in soft white. I just made a few calls, he said. The rest, he earned on his own. Hannah didn't say anything. She didn't have to. She just reached over and squeezed his hand. And for the first time in years, Walter Bennett allowed himself to feel one small, quiet thing. Relief. 6 months later. The morning sun spilled through the window blinds of Hannah Bennett's new apartment in Oakland. Not the high-rise she used to share with Travis. This place was smaller, older, cozier, plants on the windowsill, a half-finished watercolor taped to the fridge, a shelf lined with well-worn paperbacks. On the kitchen counter sat a bowl of fresh strawberries, a tub of vanilla Greek yogurt, and a mug that read, "Coffee first, justice later." She stirred her granola into the yogurt and glanced out the window. A woman walked a Labrador past the building, waving to the mailman. Across the street, a barista flipped the sign to open on a small cafe called Rosie's. Normal life. And this time it felt real. The door buzzed. She smiled. Walter. She let him in. He looked older, or maybe just more tired but lighter somehow, like a man who had finally put down a backpack he'd been carrying for too long. "I brought you something," he said, handing her a thermos. "It's the old one from the cabin. Still keeps things hot for hours." She took it. "It smells like sawdust in Oregon. That's how you know it works." They sat on her small balcony, sipping coffee. No talking for the first few minutes, just the sound of birds and passing cars. "I heard from Denise yesterday," Walter finally said. "Travis's appeal got denied. He's serving full term, no early release." Hannah didn't flinch. "That's not my business anymore," she said. "I've got other things to care about." Walter nodded, proud. They talked about nothing for a while, weather books, oatmeal versus granola. Then Hannah looked over, suddenly thoughtful. "I've been thinking about helping other women like me," she said. "Financial abuse isn't just numbers. It's about control, fear. I want to do something, teach, volunteer. I don't know yet." Walter didn't respond immediately. Instead, he said, "You know what I'm most proud of?" She looked at him. "That you didn't let this define you. You didn't just survive. You rewrote the story." She smiled, not forced, not polite. "Real. I'm thinking of getting a dog," she said casually. Walter raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Nothing big. Maybe a rescue. Something scrappy but loyal." He laughed. "Planning to name it after me only if it chews furniture and complains about the coffee." They both laughed. Walter stood to leave. She walked him to the door. Just before he stepped out, she said softly, "Thanks for showing up, Dad." "I always will," she smiled. "In case you ever need to coordinate something again, I'll leave the door unlocked." He nodded, then left. Back inside, Hannah sat at her desk, pulled out her sketch pad, and began to draw. A small dog, leaning against the leg of a woman standing tall, eyes forward, shoulders relaxed. The caption beneath read, "Her life, her terms." If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.